Hi, welcome to this episode of My Golf Geography. Today we're looking at the Urban Issues and Challenges section, the UK city which our example is Stoke-on-Trent, and it's a 6-mark question looking at the challenges of urban sprawl in UK cities. Before we start this topic, we're going to do a little bit of background information, some geography stuff. Section 6 is all about urban sprawl. Sprawl is about something getting larger and expanding, and the challenges it's created. So the impact of urban sprawl on the rural-urban fringe. Rural is to do with countryside, urban is to do with towns and cities. And of course the word fringe is to say edge. And it's the growth of what's called commuter settlements. So that's where a commuter is where someone lives somewhere and then travels to work somewhere else. We've got the Burgess model. Now the Burgess model, E.W. Burgess in the 1930s, he studied cities and he was a sociologist and he wanted to see the patterns in different cities, and he noticed that lots of cities grew up in a very similar way. In the centre of cities, you'll have noticed this yourself, in the centre there's the CBD, the Central Business District. Outside of cities there's the factories, the industrial zone, and that's where lots of the workers take place, making goods. Outside of that there's often an area of older houses, often terraced houses, and that's where, say in the late 1800s, early 1900s, that the workers would have lived, and they would have walked to work to the factories. In Zone 4 here, we'll often have what's called interwar houses between the First World War and Second World War. They are often semi-detached houses, and those are just outside the inner city zone, just outside the terraced houses zone. Section 5, we'll often have newer houses, and that's where most of our development today is being talked about. It's the rural-urban fringe. Effectively, on this blue line, that's the edge of the city. So in the centre, that's urban, that's the city. On the outside, this green area, this is rural, so that's countryside. So the question is, should we allow building in the countryside? So at the edge here, where this black line is, that's the rural-urban fringe, the rural-urban edge. Should cities be allowed to get larger, or should they be kept in their same footprint? That's what this question is all about today. So our question today is: discuss the effects of urban sprawl upon people and the environment. You should refer to a case study of a major UK city. So discuss, looking at the positives, looking at the negatives, the effects, that's the impacts. Urban sprawl, so that's the subject of this question. So the subject, you need to show that you understand what it is. You don't need to write a definition, but just weave in there somewhere your understanding. Your answer needs to talk about people, and it needs to be talked about the environment, and it needs to be pretty balanced between those two. And we should refer to a case study of a major UK city, and ours of course is Stoke-on-Trent. Here we've got the command word discuss, and that's presenting the key points about different ideas, the strengths, the weaknesses of an idea. So you're going to look at the positives and the negatives. In the yellow box in the centre, you're going to do your first sentence, then your peel positive with mini decision, mini conclusion, your negatives, mini decision, and then your summary. Now of course number 2 and 3 might be about two different parts of the question, and that's fine too. On the right hand side, you've got some structure ideas, some words that you might want to include. So the main advantages of this are all an aspect of the question, and then make a mini decision, bits in bold, underlined. And then your second one, bold, underlined, and finally, most importantly, your conclusion, including words like this is significant, important, effective, successful. Those might not all apply, but one of them will. If you find that a lot of the command words confuse you, so in the box there at the lower left here, we've got discuss, assess, explain, evaluate, to what extent. If all those you're thinking, I don't quite know what they mean, then feel free to use this multi-tool structure. So as a multi-tool, it fits most jobs, but it's not perfect. It'll get you a good way to where you need to be. This does not change. It's based on the evaluate structure. So pause here, have a look at the ideas in the middle and on the right hand side. As ever, we're going to talk about assessment objectives. So AO1, AO2, AO3. AO1 is knowing some good geography. So stuff. AO2 is understanding the geography. AO3 is applying and making a decision. And number 4 is using geography techniques. So AO1, geography, data, place names, examples. AO2, use phrases like this means that, this results in, a knock-on effect of this is due to. And AO3, as we said before, words like significant, important, effective, successful. Those are words that help you to make a decision. So here's the question again. Discuss the impacts of urban sprawl upon people and the environment. You should refer to a case study of a major UK city. Your introduction. Name the place that you've studied. Use some of the words from the question. So urban sprawl, for example. Your first paragraph is going to talk about urban sprawl and the effects on people. Include AO1, bit of data, geography, words, place names. Include AO2. So this means that, this results in. And make a mini decision. So is it successful? Is it significant? Is it important? Paragraph 2, impacts of urban sprawl on the environment. AO1, so data, geography, place names. AO2, this means that, or which means that. And AO3, make a mini conclusion. This is important because. And of course, your conclusion, which is going to be used one of these words here, which is significant, important, effective, successful. You might also, to make your conclusion fantastic, include things like short-term and long-term effects. And you'll definitely include people or social and also the environment, because of course those are the words from the question. Here we have the kind of typical area that you'd be able to answer your question in. So the first couple of lines here, that's going to be your introduction. Then you're going to have your conclusion, which is going to be the last 3 or 4 lines. And then you can see the main part of your answer. There's not a lot of room left there, so you've got to be really careful of how much time you spend explaining things. So be really specific, get straight to the point. A mark scheme for this. It's difficult to interpret mark schemes sometimes, but level 1, level 2 and level 3. These are mainly for examiners. Level 1 is making brief points. Level 2, your clear points, so you really know what you're talking about, but you maybe haven't developed it further. And level 3 is a thorough understanding, and we're thinking maybe what's going to be included in a textbook. Here's a sample answer, and you can see the AOs in red and orange and green. So in red AO1, in orange AO2 and in green AO3. So the answer, there's actually a couple of typos in this, so you'll spot those on the way through. You've got the introduction, you've got the effects on people, that's on the bracket at the side, you've got the effects on the environment and the conclusion. In Stoke-on-Trent, the effect of urban sprawl has had both positive and negative impacts upon people and the environment. An environmental impact of this is that green areas at the rural-urban fringe at the edge of the city, e.g. Barlaston, have been developed. A knock-on effect of this was the impact on wildlife and the loss of agricultural capacity. Another negative impact is increased traffic and congestion on the A34, as is increased car usage. This means more negative impacts for people, such as impact on their social lives and also health issues if they're using transport more. However, the scheme does encourage development on greenfield sites, such as the former Keele golf course, and it's seen to have a positive impact. The knock-on effect of this is the development of the creation of local economic growth through the attraction of inward investment to the city. This allows the impacts of people being able to afford larger houses. This then leads to a reduction in the percentage of residents reliant on rental or local council houses. In conclusion, there are both positive and negative impacts from urban sprawl. However, I believe the positive impacts are felt upon people. They outweigh the negative impacts felt on the environment. And again, if you want to do an even better answer than this, talk about short term, talk about long term. You could also, at the end of each one of these sentences here, you could put in your mini conclusion. So one there and one there, a mini conclusion. There's probably, actually in each one of these paragraphs, a little bit too much. So we've got a knock-on effect and a this means that there. You could just do one of those. We've got a knock-on effect and this could then lead to, you could just do one of those. There's probably a little bit too much here. Here's our next question. The first statement is, it is only by extending commuter settlements and building on the rural-urban fringe that the housing shortage in urban areas can be solved. So, do you agree with this statement? Justify your opinion. So, to annotate your question, you've got to read through the statement, and then do you know what a commuter settlement is? So it's where people live in one place and then they travel to a different place to work. And commuter settlements are usually on the outside of the city. Do you know what the rural-urban fringe is? You don't need to define it, just weave it into your sentence somewhere. And of course, it says the word agree, so you must agree or you must disagree in your answer. And it could be an extent you agree or an extent you disagree. And of course, back up your answer with some evidence. Here we've got a to what extent question. I know the question says agree or disagree, however you could partially agree or partially disagree, so it's a kind of to what extent question. And this is where the exam board want you to get into that grey area in the middle. So here, don't go for 0, 1 or 2, don't go for 8, 9 or 10, don't sit on the fence, go for 3 or 4 or 6 or 7. Put a percentage to it as well, and that will really help your answer. It'll help you to focus your answer. In the yellow box, you might want to think about it in terms of a seesaw, so the positives outweighing the negatives. Your first sentence will be the introduction. Your next sentence is going to be a appeal paragraph supporting your mini decision. Next sentence is going to be a appeal paragraph supporting your mini decision. And then your third one is going to be the opposite decision. So you might start with that with however, or on the other hand, or some people will see this in different ways. And of course, finally, is going to be your conclusion. Pause here if you want to have a look through that again, and also some of the sentence structures on the right hand side. If you find that some of the command words are a little bit confusing, so like in the box there, the bottom left, it says discuss, assess, explain, evaluate, to what extent, then feel free just to use this multi-tool structure. It's a basic structure, but it'll get you a good way to where you need to be. As ever, assessment objectives, AO1, AO2, AO3, AO1, knowing good geography, so data, examples, place names. AO2, do you understand it? Can you explain it? So use phrases like this means that, this results in, a knock-on effect of this is due to. And crucially, AO3, making a decision. So words like significant, important, effective, was it successful? They don't all fit in every sentence, but you'll pick one that fits best. So back to the question. It is only by extending commuter settlements and building on the rural-urban fringe that the housing shortage in urban areas can be solved. Do you agree with this statement? You're going to do an introduction, so to a small extent I think that, or to a large extent I think that. You decide how you want to structure that, but put a percentage in there. That will really help to focus your answer. Paragraph 1, you'll start firstly and then support what you think, support your extent statement. Include AO1, AO2, AO3. Paragraph 2, secondly, you're going to make your second supporting comment saying what you think. Include AO1, AO2, AO3. Write a mini conclusion. Paragraph 3, you're going to give the other point of view, so you might want to start with however or on the other hand. And again, include AO1, AO2, AO3. Your conclusion will include one of the words, so significant, important, effective or successful. And maybe think about the long term and short term. And you might want to think about 2 points or 1 point from SEE, so social, economic and environmental. Do those fit in somewhere? Can you weave those in somewhere? Here's the typical kind of space you would have for this, maybe a couple more lines because it says 9 marks. But really we're talking about the first couple of lines, that's going to be your introduction. Your final 3 or 4 lines, that's going to be your conclusion, and you can see here, that's going to be your first supporting comment, second supporting comment, maybe the opposite point of view. So you've got to be really tight, really careful with your spacing so you get straight to the point maybe include one, this means that. Make sure your data is in there somewhere. Here's the mark scheme: level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 is about making brief comments. Level 2, clear comments, so it's clear that you know what you're on about. And level 3 is a thorough understanding of the work. Really the kind of level that you'd expect to see in a textbook. Here we have spelling, punctuation and grammar marks. So at the bottom we've got what's called threshold performance. So it's okay. There's a few spelling mistakes in there. Some of your grammatical skills are not great. You might miss a few full stops, that kind of thing. Intermediate performance. So you're doing pretty well. Maybe a couple of mistakes. Maybe the layout of your work isn't as great, but it's okay. And then we've got high performance, which is thinking about pretty much most of your spelling is okay, specifically the specialist subject terms. And also your grammar is really good, and the way that you've laid out your answer is really good as well. So you're following the structures that we've given to you. Here we've got a couple of sample answers, and there's probably a little bit too much in here than you will need. So maybe just one knock-on effect or one this is because. You can see we've got the AOs identified in red, AO1 in red, AO2 in orange, AO3 in green. We've also separated out the paragraphs on the left hand side, so you can see the introduction, PL1, which has actually got two parts to it, and PL2, and then we've got the conclusion as well. So PL2 is the opposite side of the argument. So I agree to a large extent, and we'll also see some typos in here as we go. I agree to a large extent that extending commuter settlements such as Kiel is the solution to housing shortages in Stoke-on-Trent. There are a number of commuter settlements around Stoke-on-Trent. These include Barlaston and Kiel. These greenfield sites are cheaper to build on, but they're not favoured by environmentalists, as a knock-on effect of this is the encouragement of urban sprawl. Another knock-on effect of this is the increase in commuting and traffic congestion as people travel from urban areas from the countryside. Just recently, there are plans for about 350 homes to be built on the greenfield site in Mere. This leads to an increased pressure on the overstretched public services, such as doctors and schools. However, some argue that schemes such as the £1 house scheme that's run by local council is more effective in reducing housing issues. A knock-on effect of this scheme is that housing becomes more affordable to more people without harming the environment. That's through building on greenfield sites. But it's argued this scheme is very small scale and less significant, and therefore its impact is limited. In summary, I think that building on the rural-urban fringe and extending commuter settlements will be the most significant way in helping the housing shortage in Stoke-on-Trent, but I think there's many negative impacts upon the economy and the environment. Now at this point you can make yours even better. You could probably lose some of this here because a little bit too much explanation. You've got two examples, you've got Barlaston and Kiel, so you could possibly lose the bit about Kiel. Then we've got here, you could put at the end of your sentence a mini conclusion. Also in the conclusion at the end you could talk about the short term and the long term in terms of environmental and economic, so you can make this one even better.